Good morning. Can you believe it's the 29th of January already? It has gone so fast. It's snow covered here. And so I've got like so many clothes on because I was so cold when I woke up this morning. So I feel like a bear. But anyway, I wanted to talk to you this morning about emotional neglect. I didn't know it was a term. So if you did, you're way ahead of me. I had no idea that I was emotionally neglected and that people that are emotionally neglected often neglect other people's emotions. Yeah. And I'm a pastor, so who would have thought that, right? So, emotional neglect is something that can be generational. People that are not connected, people that are not connected with their emotions, don't know how to connect with other people's emotions. And so their emotional IQ is really low. And they just go through life not knowing how low their emotional IQ is. And so they consistently don't deal with their own emotions, don't deal with other people's emotions, and are pretty much totally blind to emotions in relationship. Maybe if I give you a scenario, you'll understand. So years ago, our house burned down. And when our house burned down, as a emotionally neglected adult that hadn't resolved her issues from childhood, when the house burned down, my thing was go into protection mode. And so was my husband's. So we didn't want the kids to have to see the house. We didn't want them to experience all of their belongings in embers and ash. Our daughter had a, what is it called? Hermit crab, and he got fried. Her computer, her room was pretty much her apartment from the time she was little. And my other little girl, all of her stuffed animals, her books, her blankie that she had with her all the time, she sucked her thumb and rubbed the silk on her blankie, were all either laying out in the yard or charred. And so we just protected the kids from it, got them what they needed, put them in a room with us for a year, and just never really talked about the fire, just drove on and lived life as normal. And when I say that, I think that is so weird. Like, you did that? And I'm like, I did. I didn't ask my kids how they felt about the fire. I didn't ask them if they wanted to go see the house because I thought if I talked about it, they'd cry and they'd get upset. And if they saw the house, it would make it worse. So I didn't want them to see the house. I just went into protection mode and I thought, what's best for the kids? So what's best for the kids is replace the things that are missing and drive on. So that's what I did. And it wasn't until years later, we're living in the house I live in now, and the kids were here and they put a bean bag, like the kind that you're supposed to put in the microwave and heat it. But they're young and they didn't know how many minutes, and they put it in too many minutes and it caught on fire. And so this is hilarious. They froze. They totally froze. And I came in and I said, "What's going on, girls?" And they were just like looking at the microwave. And I realized something was on fire. So I was like, I can't pull the whole thing out of the wall because it's a convection oven microwave. So what do I do with this? I scream for my husband. My husband comes down. He takes oven mitts, grabs the bean thing, and throws it outside. It's the dead of winter. And we had taken our Christmas tree, which was also dead, and set it outside. And when he threw the bean bag, he threw it on a dead Christmas tree. And you can imagine it went poof, and it started a fire. And now there's three of us in freeze mode. And my husband is trying to put up with three women in freeze mode. And so he goes over to get the water hose that's there on the porch to put the fire out. And I told you it was very cold. The water in the hose is frozen. And so there's nothing he can do. So he realizes he's got to enlist the help of his wife and his two daughters to now have a line of fill this water, give it to her, give it to him, he'll throw it on the tree. Fill this water, give it to her, she'll give it to him, throw it on the tree. So that's what we did to put it out. And I laugh about it now, but it was a trigger and it was like trauma and nobody was handling it very well. And so even though it's hilarious now, it just goes to show you that you don't know what's in there until something like that occurs. So, since I didn't know about all that, I'm learning, and it is very, very, very painful. I realize it goes all the way back to when I came home from school that day, and my mother had written my dad a letter that said, I won't be back. Rena's old enough to take care of her 4 younger brothers, and I'm gone. And her wedding rings were there. My dad never said, how does that make you feel? My dad never said, well, let's have a family meeting, Rena and the 4 boys. No, we just kicked in and just did what we had to do to make it happen. And nobody ever mentioned my mother leaving. My dad never mentioned anything about life changing. He never asked us how we were adjusting or if we needed any help, or no, he just said, Rena, you do this, this, and this today. David, you do this, and went right through and gave us all a list of things to do. And we just did it. And we were like little soldiers with no emotion, no feeling. Nobody even really cried. And that's not normal. I don't know why I thought that was normal, but I was a kid. So I didn't know where to put feelings. So since nobody else was putting feelings out there, I just didn't put feelings out there either. So this has been quite the trip for me. And if you're wondering how I got on this, I took a class on how to make more money and how to make businesses better, to write books and to sell your book. And in finding all that out, I found me. It was very strange. But most people don't make a big income because of their own personal issue. They keep money from them. They keep prosperity from them. They keep promotion from them. They keep people from them. So they don't make the proper connections. So they don't have the proper networks. So until you figure out you, probably not going to figure out a lot of things. And so one of the sayings that I've heard was, when you feel it, you can heal it. And so it's been quite an emotional roller coaster as far as emotions and feelings go. And then I also heard, it's not what pushes your buttons, it's what programmed you. Maybe it's not what programmed you, maybe it's who programmed you. But those things, when you figure them out, give you hope. You can be reprogrammed. You can start having the relationships you've always wanted to have, and stop yourself from cutting yourself off from relationships that could really bring a healing to you. And in so doing, maybe bring a healing to others. I can't go back to when I was little and talk to myself and say, how did you feel about your mother leaving? Were you afraid? You decided to be strong. Who were you being strong for? Oh, I was being strong for my daddy and my 4 little brothers. Well, you were allowed to be a little girl. How did the little girl Rena feel? And to be honest with you, she had no feelings. And because she had no feelings, as she grew up, she didn't allow herself to have feelings. So she didn't think about other people's feelings. See, we really need to be kind to people because we don't know what they've been through. When people hurt our feelings, we need to ask ourselves, why? Could I have said that better? Could I have maybe asked some questions? Could I open myself up and my vulnerability to say, are you okay? Like, I'd be crying right now. Do you feel like crying? Are you sad? Or just, what's your reaction to what just happened? Would you like to just share what your reaction was to that? Well, they could have a totally different reaction than what you're having because they didn't have the trigger or the trauma or the tragedy that you went through. So I hope this is really helping you because I'm being extremely vulnerable and it's very uncomfortable for me because I don't usually share emotion or feelings with anyone. And now you know why.